We are joined now by the former leader of the Nationals and current member for New England, the man who needs no introduction, Barnaby Joyce. Welcome to Spectator TV.
You're welcome, Alexandra. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you much for the invitation.
Look, Barnaby, despite the fact that the world is in a state of free fall and Australia's economy is behaving a little bit like an e-car with a dead battery being pushed along the highway by a pack of bureaucrats, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has decided that we're all going to sit down and ignore the problems and have a debate about the voice to Parliament instead. Barnaby, you're one of the strongest no voices out there in the political world. Forget all the detail that's going on. Is this question about the voice to Parliament fundamentally a moral question about inserting race into Australia's constitution?
Well, I find it an anathema, Alexandra, to think that even those on the other side of the political fence, to me, I thought that I believe in the United Nations Convention on Human Rights, where Article 1 says that human beings are born with equal right and equal dignity. Now, this, of course, says that certain people in Australia will be born with different rights to other people. And, of course, if you've got an accentuated right for one person, you have a diminished right for another person, and it's premised on the colour of your skin. I never thought we'd be debating this in 2023. And, of course, it's not an elected body. It's a selected body, So we have a selected body in our democracy that has immense power on every vestige of how a democracy works. Now, if you don't believe it on a human rights basis, believe it on a democratic basis. And if you don't believe that, just look at an administrative basis. It'll be a total nightmare.
Well, when I grew up not that long ago, it was a race-blind Australia. We never heard anyone talk about race, ever. Are you finding that today's Australia is becoming more focused on discussions about race, and is this a healthy place for Australia to be in?
Well, we're starting to moralise while we bring race back into the Constitution, and that's a peculiarity. In the past, like you would say, if people overseas said, oh, Australia has a race-based constitution, they'd say, oh, no, that was a white Australia policy. They got rid of that ages ago with the 1960s. Menzies got rid of it. And so, no, they've brought it back, 2023. They're inserting a clause to bring race back into the Constitution. Now, that my adversaries will say, oh, we've got race clauses there already. Well, Section 25 is dead letter law. Let's forget about that. Because it contravenes the Racial Discrimination Act. And I thought that this might contravene the Racial Discrimination Act. And Section 52 is so we can bring forward policies to assist Indigenous people, but it's brought forward by elected members of Parliament, not selected people from a section of the community. I mean, this is why, you know, we and your listeners, you have to get fired up. You have to talk to your kids, your grandkids. Don't just sleepwalk on this one, because you will completely change the tenor of Australian democracy if you decide to sit down and take it easy.
Well, how important is this difference between an elected membership and a selected membership, as you keep saying? Is this a fundamental break with everything that we thought we understood about Australia's system of government?
Well, yes, it is. I mean, and talking to some of my Republican friends and having the debate with them, and they on the yes case, I said, well, what is your issue with the monarchy? And they say, oh, well, it's people who are just born to a certain right, a filial line to a right. And I said, well, but that's what you're voting for under the voice. You're voting for people to be born to a right and other people not to. How can you have these two views? You know, and so it's just. I'm sorry.
No, say you're right. It is completely strange that we have two referendums coming up potentially under Labor. One is to get rid of a birthright to government, and the other is to introduce one, and yet there doesn't seem to be any discussion across the media about whether these two things seem to be incompatible.
And even the tenor of this discussion, Alexandra, they say you're a racist if you vote no. Well, actually, I'm not a racist. That is why I'm voting no, because the no case is about making sure we don't include a racial clause in our Constitution, the driving document of our nation.